everyone feels like an imposter. You're going to be cringe on LinkedIn. One of these days, I'm going to be on that Reddit thread on LinkedIn of like LinkedIn cringe. But it's like, it's okay. Do it scared.
Welcome to another episode of the Visible Podcast.
Right now, I'm VP of Global Growth Marketing at Varonis. Varonis is my first foray into cybersecurity. I get asked this a lot. A lot of people think of growth marketing or demand gen. And they think it's just like paid advertising.
Cybersecurity is one of those industries that everyone kind of knows about it, but at the crux of it, it is a very serious industry.
You're talking to a target audience who can sniff out BS. You can't kind of just come in and fake it. I tend to be the person who kind of comes into a company from a marketing perspective and is like a change maker. You never want to come in and just be like, I'm ripping everything out. I'm completely changing it all, because you'll never have people on your side.
It's like, do I do a newsletter? Do I do, LinkedIn, or do I do something internally? There's so many different ways.
There's so many heads of, marketing and CMOs that I'm friends with that don't post at all on LinkedIn. I don't even know if they have a LinkedIn. They have no kind of brand presence, but they're well known within their industry. It's not going to work out how you think it is, but it all works out. Just roll with it.
What goes behind building great tech and bringing it to the world? It's the marketing, the product, the design, the engineering. But most importantly, it is the humans behind it. Welcome to The Visible, where we bring you the stories behind tech. The wins, the realizations, the mistakes, and the lessons. The stories that show you how great ideas really come to life. We bring you the stories behind tech so you can build, lead, and tell your story better. Welcome to another episode of the Visible Podcast. I'm really excited. I've got a very good friend of mine, and I'm so excited to have you on the show as well. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited that you're doing this podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know we were planning to do this in person. That didn't quite pan out, but I thought that would be kind of like a good thing to touch on, because, a lot of what we do, sometimes, things don't go to plan as well. And it's like, we have to navigate around all these like different things. We expect things to run a certain way, but, like plans don't
never do
work out. And I think when that happened, I kind of thought, what, it's not about painting a perfect picture of like everything goes to plan, and it's as much about just putting our best foot forward in whatever shape or form we can. And I definitely wanted to have you as part of season 1 and have this conversation, because, you're doing such a lot of amazing work for the industry. So I'm really excited to dig into this. But
Thanks.
Before anything else, I do want to introduce you to the audience as well. So for people who don't know you, which I don't think there should be many, but for those who don't, can you tell us a little bit about, your journey into cybersecurity, and what you're doing now, what you've done leading up to this?
Yeah, so right now I'm VP of Global Growth Marketing at Varonis. I've been at the company for about 3 years, and honestly, Varonis is my first foray into cybersecurity. My dad was in cybersecurity. He worked like as a sales engineer all my life, and so I've always known about like strong passwords. He was always on me about my passwords and my data protection, all that stuff. So I feel like it was just kind of in the stars, I should end up in cybersecurity. But, previous to this, I've kind of moved around in a lot of different industries, but a lot of around more like building growth engines for different companies. I've worked for startups. I've worked for, larger corporations. I've worked for blue collar hoists and rigging companies, all the way to SaaS, B2B technology companies. So I feel like I've gotten a foray into a lot of different industries, and I definitely feel like cybersecurity is, an industry that really excites me. Obviously, it's not going anywhere. It's only getting more and more important. There's a lot of growth opportunities, and it's definitely fun being on the marketing side of things, because no day is the same, and, all these evolutions with hacks and AI and everything definitely keeps us on our toes, which is what I enjoy. So it's been a lot of fun kind of building that at Varonis for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe when you say that you've only recently, like, you haven't been in cybersecurity for that long a time, because looking at the content that you post and, like the way you put yourself forward, I would have thought that's been your entire career. So I'm definitely...
Thank you.
I
fake it.
I think we all do, right? Until we kind of make it, or the day you catch yourself like saying an acronym and you're like, how do I know that?
Oh my gosh, yes.
that happens to me nowadays, because I've only been in the industry like 7 years in sort of like a little bit of a form with this whole podcast and everything that we do, and like coming into it, I was just like, obviously I think cybersecurity is one of those industries that everyone kind of knows about it, but not until you start working in it, you kind of realize, oh my God, this is like a beast, and it's got so much.
Yes.
It's really overwhelming coming into it, and you're like all these different concepts, and like there's so many different like specialities, like if you're in cloud security or, data security, and yeah, it just it's ever growing, and AI hasn't helped because now we've got all these other
I
terms
know.
to learn.
New phishing tax, all the things. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. So when you say you are in growth marketing, what does that actually mean, Nicole? Like for people who don't know what that is, and I'm also like, this is one question I love asking. What do people think you do versus what your actual job is?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot. I think a lot of marketers don't even really know what growth marketing is. And I think it's because it varies. So, usually, a lot of people they hear growth marketing or demand gen, and they think it's just like paid advertising. They think, I'm just kind of running around, building a bunch of campaigns, driving a bunch of leads. But well, the misconception I think of growth marketing is actually more of like an orchestrator. No two growth marketers I feel like are the same. It kind of depends on the company and where the needs are. It's kind of looking at all the different opportunities, where is there kind of areas to grow revenue, grow new business, maybe, upsell, what's working in terms of marketing channels. Maybe it's also looking at, new markets that you should be entering into. So you kind of have your hands in a lot of things, and it's a lot about orchestrating and kind of optimizing those opportunities through marketing. So like, some days it could be through webinars, other days it could be, I'm working on go-to-market strategy, I'm working on budgeting. No 2 day looks the same, which is quite interesting. And I think that's why there's a lot of misconceptions around growth marketing, because I'll even look at how other companies kind of list, job descriptions for it. And some people, they loop in field and channel. Other people are just looking at paid advertising and performance. And it really does depend on like what the company is looking at and what are the growth drivers. So it's a reason why I like it is because I kind of like, not doing the same thing every
Yes.
single day and being able to kind of stretch myself into different areas and being like, oh, that's interesting, and have some curiosity and kind of be able to expand into that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that quite answered it, but that's kind
No.
of what I envision growth marketing as.
It just sounds like there's lots of like different parts to the role. And as you said, like, I mean, with most roles, like there is obviously a different flavor for depending on the company that you're part of as well. But yeah, as you said, it's like, and I think that's been like, I think one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast is because I get to really understand like there are so many different like clog wheels and all these little like roles that sort of come together. So when someone's launching a product or sort of talking about a feature and stuff, can you hear Simba in the background,
A
by the
little
way?
bit, yeah.
Yeah. It's like
I locked
he
my dog out for the
yeah.
exact same reason.
He's actually downstairs in a different room completely, and somehow he manages to. I think it's like it's a running joke because for all our other podcasts as well, he always like makes himself known.
He
And I'm
knows.
like, this is his name. He's like, oh, there's a new something's launching. Like I'm still here, guys. Like
Yeah,
the,
exactly.
the joy.
Star appearance.
Yes, he's like, I need to build my brand as well. So
Yes, exactly. I like it. Let's bring in Simba. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. You also said like, this is kind of like the first company that you're forayed into like cybersecurity. And I'm always interested because that's another wonderful thing that I found about cybersecurity because there's people who've come from like so many different careers that have transitioned into it. And everyone kind of brings their own like flavor. I want to learn from you more about like what was it like for you coming into cybersecurity? Things that were maybe challenging and things that you've completely fallen in love with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing is just the technicality of it. You're talking to a target audience who can sniff out BS. I always say they don't like marketing. They know when you're kind of bringing in that fluffy stuff. So you can't kind of just come in and fake it. You have to really know it, or at least, have people on the team who are helping you understand it. So that's something I still struggle with. I don't think I'm a cybersecurity expert whatsoever, but I know enough of like how to target and talk to those people and bring in those experts to kind of help me with that messaging or help me with that marketing. But I think that's also what I like about cybersecurity is that I feel like it's a very experimental area right now because it is so busy and there's so much noise and there is so much happening with it that you still can kind of do progressive and experimental things with marketing to see how you can stand out. It's not like your traditional kind of B2B industry where it might be set in its ways. It might be a little old school. It might be a little bit behind in marketing, where I think, the marketers and companies who are doing the best marketing in cybersecurity are doing some of the more like experimental things that you would maybe see with like B2C companies or even, SaaS tech companies that are marketing to marketers usually do some of the best marketing because we're the most, we also kind of smell BS, I guess. And so it's a lot of fun because I feel like you can continue to kind of experiment and evolve. And there's a lot of cool marketers doing a lot of cool things in cybersecurity. And I just love kind of learning from all these different people and seeing how it has like direct impact onto the company. And also cybersecurity is actually helping people. You know, you're not selling something that's people don't really need. Like people really do need to protect their data. People really do need to like make sure they're not being hacked or their information's not going anywhere. And so like it's also nice to know that you're working for the most part, an industry that's truly helpful and beneficial to people. And you're not just selling, you know, you're like a sleazy salesman kind of pushing something on people that they don't need.
Absolutely. No, that's so very true because I think that is one thing that I really like about cybersecurity is that it's something that impacts everyone, right? Like you can talk to your parents about it and you can talk to your friends about it because everyone has data out there nowadays and everyone's putting a lot of personal information out there. We're using all sorts of technology, including AI, and we kind of get to be part of, how do we make everyone fall in love with technology, but not have to be scared about how to use it. And you're very right. It's such an exciting time at the moment for cybersecurity as well, because companies are getting more and more innovative. Like I always say, like when we first started like 7 years ago, things were very different, like the
Yeah.
cybersecurity is very serious, like obviously with, when we want to market or we're talking about it, we want to make it fun because we want to make it digestible. But at the crux of it, it is a very serious industry. And it's taken a while for, people to be okay with like, how do we still give value, but it's okay to, like not be entirely serious because at the end of the day, we're still all humans and, we want to absorb things in an easy way. So, and yeah, I have seen over the years people doing more and more interesting, fun things that, just make you fall in more in love with the whole industry as well. So no, I do
Yeah. I
think,
mean, that's the reason why I liked, you know, working with your guys' podcast was because you were doing something different. You were doing something, you know, out of the box. And I know talking to you guys previously, like you were saying, no one was doing, you know, eating chicken wings while they're interviewing CISOs and stuff. But I love that. You know, I love people who are taking risks and doing something fun. And it's obviously been successful. And that's the kind of marketing. And I'm happy to see that it is kind of transitioning into this more fun, experimental, like, you know, thinking outside the box type of marketing when it comes to cybersecurity. And it's not, like you said, previous years where it was a little bit more buttoned up and professional. You still have to be professional, but like
yeah.
you can have fun with it too.
Yeah, finding that balance is a
Yeah.
hard one. This kind of leads into a question quite well. It's about like trusting your gut because I think one thing with being experimental is that when you're trying something new that hasn't been done in the industry or when you're like kicking off a project that's very novel, you always have that, oh, I'm doing something different. What if it doesn't work? Has there ever been a time in your career, and doesn't have to be probably the current company or whenever, that you've had a project or you've decided to do something which you were kind of like, it's experimental, it's new, maybe you don't have the numbers or like the dashboard yet to prove it, but you've kind of gone with it and it's kind of played out well. Has there ever been a circumstance like that?
Yeah. I mean, not something so much experimental, but something where I knew my gut was right. And it was kind of when I first started at Varonis. I think I was about like 6 or 8 months in, and I recently was taking over content marketing on the team. And my boss, our CMO, he used to be in control of content marketing. He was the original blogger at Varonis and stuff. So he's very like close to content marketing, had a very specific point of view of like who we should bring in, what the content marketing strategy should be. And I disagreed. You know, I've done content marketing myself in different industries and stuff. And this was an area at time where I feel like my expertise, even though it wasn't in cybersecurity, but my expertise of like building, you know, growth teams and content teams for different industries, I was like, I kind of disagree and think we need more of a strategist versus like he wanted just technical content writers and that's it. And I was saying how it was like it was too focused and we needed to bring in people who could think holistically about content, see it as a growth engine. Yeah, we'll bring in people who are technical content writers who can speak to that, but I need someone who's thinking about it strategically. And so, you know, we did definitely butt heads a little bit on it. And then finally he was just like, all right, prove yourself. I'll trust you and like build the team that you want. And I could happily say that he did tell me eventually that I was right and that he couldn't imagine like not having the team that we have today. I'm very lucky to have the content team that I have today. They're, I think, one of the strongest content teams in cybersecurity. But it was because I kind of trusted my gut that we were able to build that kind of growth lever on our team versus, you know, kind of thinking piecemeal if you're just looking at it from like an individual content perspective, but thinking about it as a lever that can actually help grow the company and scale, you know, our marketing globally was a good intuition that I had from previous experience that's worked out well for me.
Yeah, oh, that's a beautiful story because it's funny. I kind of relate to that quite a bit because, like, I mean, I don't come from cybersecurity, but I've always been really interested in content, like more so like travel and food content. And
Yes.
I think that's why I think a lot of stuff that we do, and Ashish, who's the co-host from mine, like he was a lot into like men's fashion content and stuff. So we were consuming and we were part of doing all of that. And I think when we came into doing like cybersecurity, like media and podcasting, I think we brought a lot of those flavors and yeah, initially, I mean, obviously, it took a while for people to get used to it and stuff. But I
Yeah.
think over the years, I do believe that's kind of been part of the reason for our success because we're kind of trying to do things that are like a bit novel versus breaking the
Approachable,
norm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think a lot of those industries, like especially the B2C ones, because there's such a volume and there's so much competitiveness, they often come out with really good
Yes.
things. I mean, obviously, they've come out with some bizarre things as well, so there is that. But
Very
there are
true.
sometimes some really good things, and there's a lot to be learned, and they have a lot of pressure to keep improving and stuff as well. So I think that's like a really great point that you've brought up. I think the other thing you touched on there, and I really want to get into this because I think one of my motivations for doing this podcast is obviously a lot of people who are in the industry who want to learn more about the industry, but also sort of want to build their career in here, build their branding in here. You spoke about obviously when you jump into a new team or you're part of a new company, you come with your ideas, and sometimes people in that company have been doing things a certain way.
Yes.
What did you find was a good way to sort of approach that? Because obviously, you want to be respectful of who you're working with, and everyone will have a good reason for having their opinions. But you've come from a fresh perspective, and you want that to be tested out as well. What's the best way to approach these kind of things? Because clearly it's worked
Yeah.
out for you.
Yeah, it's kind of a common theme throughout my career. I've realized not intentionally, but I tend to be the person who kind of comes into a company from a marketing perspective and is like a change maker. I'm usually coming in and being like, they've been doing things and it's not working. And I'm like trying to push them into that next level of growth, that next, evolution of marketing. So I've definitely done this a lot. And I'd say at first, like, take your time a little bit. Like it's definitely a balance of like, having good immediate impact and also making sure you're not stepping on too many toes. You never want to come in and just be like, I'm ripping everything out. I'm completely changing it all because you'll never have people on your side. And the biggest piece of advice I'd say is like have, people who are on your side who are with you and are like, I believe in this. I also want this. I see what you're doing. Let me assist you with it. And they also are the good people who will like identify blockers or potential like flags that you don't know about. So like when I first came into Varonis, there were certain areas that I could just own and move and change immediately that didn't really touch a lot of people. So like I'd focus on that first where I'm like, okay, paid advertising, for example. No one wanted to own it. Everyone was like, please just take this over and do whatever you want with it. So I'm like, great, that's where I'll make, some immediate impact where I can just run things how I would think that they should run and I don't need to check with everybody else. While there's other areas of my job where I'm like, all right, I need to talk to, these certain people who kind of all touch this and kind of understand like what's worked, what's not worked, what are their pain points. Also, like, get their ideas involved too. I found there was a lot of people who, like, maybe they had expressed ideas and they kind of got shot down. And I was like, okay, well, now's a really good opportunity for us to bring those ideas back to the forward because I have the ear of, the CMO at the moment. And so, like, I would use that opportunity to kind of up level them as well and bring them into the fold with my strategy. And then it starts getting people on your side. So, I always say, like, I kind of look at it, the 30, 60, 90-day plan, where the first 30 days, you're just a sponge. Like, find that opportunity that you can make direct impact, but then use those first 30 days to just talk to people, absorb information, see how things are done, understand the dynamics a little bit. And then from there, you'll be able to kind of identify some areas for change, some areas that you can kind of start tweaking those changes and then implementing them, by your third month and then moving forward from there. Don't feel like you got to change everything at once. I always see things as progress and phases. It's just naturally how like my brain kind of works. Where I'm like, all right, we need step one, then we can go to two and then to three. So kind of look at it first being like, what are those first foundational pieces that I can change that seems to have a common theme that everybody's like looking like this is a pain, or I really wish we were doing this, or I just haven't had the ability or the green light to kind of do these things. Find those opportunities and work from there. And then as you get people on your side and people see you as like someone who's going to help elevate them, help them be better, isn't here as like, I guess like a villain who's going to come in and like take things away from you, but more of like your sidekick or your partner in this, then it's easier to kind of make bigger changes because you have more people on your side and they have also seen the proof in the pudding a little bit where they're like, all right, Nicole kind of knows a little bit what she's talking about. Now I'll listen more when she's maybe combating me on a bigger kind of change that she wants to make.
Yeah, no, I love that you've also given it like a timeline thing as well. And starting off as a sponge, I think it is so important because it's that balance, like as you said, when you get into a new company or you're kicking off a project, there is almost that temptation to you want to just, change things very quickly and deliver
Yes.
results. And just like, kind of saying, it's okay, let's just learn the new environment and then we move from there. And I think I like the fact that you've kind of given it structure as well, because anyone listening to this can kind of go, okay, like it's okay to take those first few days or weeks to understand what the problems are or if there are any, and then kind of move from there. So no, thank you for sharing that as well.
Yeah, I'd say just to add on to that, I have a lot of, new hires who come in and they're all, high achievers, very eager. And I tell them the same things. Like they always come in and they're like, I feel so weird kind of not doing 20 million things all at once because I just came from that and I want to be that again. And like, it's okay. Give yourself a break. Like, one, enjoy the fact that you're not being demanded in 20 million meetings because that won't last very long. But two, I'm like, we'll find those opportunities for you to have impact immediately, but like take this opportunity to really like absorb and be a sponge and come in with that new knowledge because it goes away. You become integrated into the systems pretty quickly and then you don't have that fresh insight. So I as well as I follow it, that's what I encourage my new hires as well to do. I'm like, take a breath. It's okay in those first like couple weeks to not be like, running at 100. You'll get there.
Yeah. No, and I'm so glad you're creating that environment because yeah, it's really hard. And I think earlier on in your career, like I used to be one of those people, I can totally relate to that because
Oh yeah, I am still that person.
and it's just like, how do you not just start delivering on things and, go at 100 miles per hour from the day dot? It is a very challenging thing to sort of
Yes.
balance as well. I think the other thing I really wanted to touch on is because obviously with all these different roles in cybersecurity, I'm always curious, like, how do you measure success, like as a growth marketer in your company or just in your day to day? Like, what does success actually look like, or what are the tangible things you kind of go, this is successful for me? And can be beyond dashboards because obviously that's the very obvious one. But what are the other things that look like success for you?
Yeah, I mean the good and the bad of growth marketing is that I'm tied to pipeline, just like sales. So I have very tangible goals and results and data to show like did this work or did this not? At the end of the day, if I don't help, sales hit their revenue numbers and their pipeline goals for the quarter, I haven't done a good job as, head of growth marketing. So number one, that's definitely, the first impact. Like I am tied to revenue goals, just like sales is. But other ways that I kind of know, because there is a balance when it comes to marketing, it's not like a pay in, pay out kind of, situation with marketing. I wish it was because I'd be a lot richer and a lot more successful. But there is a bit of the intuition piece, similar like you were just talking about, where you just kind of know there's going to be areas, I think they call it the dark funnel still, where there's things that are happening that aren't trackable, that, you can't tie attribution to, that aren't going to be tied directly to, this drove this account to be in this pipeline and this opportunity. But you kind of have to know have some good judgment as a marketer that you're like, no, this is kind of worth making this investment. And to find how that works, I feel like you can kind of feel the change, or word of mouth is always going to bubble up to the top. You'll start hearing sales kind of being like, oh, XYZ really worked. Or you might hear the C-suite being like, oh, so-and-so mentioned this on a customer call. Or even, things like online, like I post quite a bit on LinkedIn and all of a sudden one will just kind of pop off a little bit more than others. And you're like, all right, I think I kind of touched on a thing that, is kind of working. And so there is kind of like a vibe change kind of when things are working, where you're just like, all right, I can kind of feel like this is working. I feel like there's momentum. It kind of feels a little bit easier to kind of continue to grow and to push. And so you're like, all right, let's lean a little bit more into that until I can get that lovely data attribution to prove that it's working.
Yeah, and you're very right. Like sometimes it's just like the energy of what you're doing changes, how people kind of like talk to you or your teams are talking to you or how people are engaging with your company or yourself, like that changes as well. And it's sometimes not immediate that you see it on the numbers, but and I think it's a balance. Like you can't just have
Yes.
entirely just vibes. But
Just vibe marketing.
I don't say that. No, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a next buzzword. Like after vibe coding, there's vibe marketing. I think
Yes,
that's
exactly.
next. You said it first. So if it becomes popular, you can own that one.
Trademark it, vibe marketing, Nicole Gates.
Yes. I'm glad you touched on the whole LinkedIn thing because I think that's another thing I really wanted to talk to you about. for anyone who doesn't know, obviously, I'm pretty sure if anyone's on LinkedIn, they would have seen you do a great job of like talking about marketing. You've got a newsletter that, you kind of speak really honestly, I feel like, about like what it is to, do it, what are the things you need to be honest about, what are the things you should be measuring. And obviously the name of the podcast is Visible. So I think we'll shift gears from what we've been talking about a little bit. When I do mention the word visible, what does that mean for you, Nicole, personally?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not so much like me personally, like not ego or anything like that. It's funny that I'm active on LinkedIn, I'm doing podcasts because I'm actually a pretty private person and I don't like to be in the spotlight. But for me, it's like giving visibility into the impact marketing is having on the company, because especially in B2B marketing, there's a lot of misconceptions, especially when it comes to, finance. Finance thinks we're just a spend center that just spends money with nothing. Sales sometimes kind of thinks we're just their assistant there to make one pagers and spreadsheets for them. So there is a lot of kind of like internal marketing that needs to happen. And for me, that's the visibility where I'm like, I need to really show how marketing can be a partner in growth, especially in my role. Like I can actually have an impact on, can we hit revenue numbers? Can we scale this company? Can we get to our goals as a company? And I'm not just here kind of making pretty social media cards and one pagers for stuff. So for me, that's what visibility is. It's also like bringing visibility to my team. As a leader, I always tell my team if they look good, it makes me look good. So I want to find opportunities to kind of put them into the spotlight, and I don't want it to just always be me, because if it's always me, then I'm a bottleneck.
Yep.
Or, I'm taking credit for people. I'm not elevating my team so that, it's not just me kind of, doing work. I can also bring in other really talented people to make sure that they're being seen and being stretched as well so that they can grow in their career. So from like a marketing perspective, it's like, okay, internal marketing to other orgs on the impact we're having, but also bringing visibility to what my team's doing and giving them that opportunity to have visibility to, other projects or teams that maybe they wouldn't necessarily otherwise.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. And I think I love this question. I've asked it to a few people on the podcast, and it's amazing to hear. And I'm really grateful. Like most guests have kind of said stuff, which is, it is so much beyond yourself. Because when I did start the podcast, I kind of was thinking, I don't think the intention of the podcast is all about people who are building their own brands, but there's so much behind doing something like this. As you said, it's shining a light on others, building a community where people can talk openly about how they've, learned from failures, and kind of like how do we all just grow as a community and help, rise each other up. So I very much
Yes.
align with what you've kind of said about the visibility piece. It is about, how do you shine a light on the kind of work you're doing, the people that you're surrounded with. So that's absolutely really, really beautiful. You obviously decided to start a newsletter as well, and you post a lot on LinkedIn. Was there a moment that kind of triggered you to go, this is what I'm going to do? Because I think that's a challenge that a lot of people have, is like, do I do a newsletter? Do I do, LinkedIn? Or do I do something internally? Or is it a podcast or YouTube? There's so many different ways. What led you down? Was there a moment that you decided to start it? Because I guess we all kind of had that moment. And why the mediums that you chose?
Yeah, there's definitely a moment for both. I've been posting on and off on LinkedIn for a few years now, and I kind of started mainly because I was curious. I was starting to see more marketers and companies posting on LinkedIn, and I saw, the benefit of having thought leaders kind of sharing like how I'm building something or how my company is building things, and I wanted to implement it into the company I was working at before it was a startup I was working at, an ed tech startup. And so for me, the way I will want to, in order to like implement something, I need to do it first. I need to kind of test it myself. So I started it because I'm like, I want to see what it's like so that if I train, my CEO to do it, or, some of my sales reps on how to do it, I have firsthand experience on like, this is what works, this is what doesn't. So for me, it was more of like an arm of like stretching my marketing skills and just seeing, how it worked. And it snowballed really quickly. And I was like, wow, I can see like the benefit of it. I started getting invited to podcasts. I was making connections I never would have connected before. And so like I just really saw, the benefit of kind of being active on LinkedIn. But I always did keep it with a balance where there would be times where I felt like I had to post just to post. And for me, I don't want to like be putting out stuff that doesn't feel true to me or kind of feels like too fluffy and stuff. And so I've taken time away and then come back, and I'd be like, okay, now I'm only going to post if I really feel like there's something I should post about, and don't feel forced into it. I'm not on here to just, grow a bunch of followings and become like a marketing celebrity. That's not my goal. It's just more of like to stretch my skill set a little bit.
But you're already a marketing celebrity, Nicole.
I don't think so. No. Talk about imposter syndrome. No, no,
Yeah.
no. And then I think the newsletter kind of evolved from that too, where I was seeing the Substacks that were evolving. I'm working with a lot of cybersecurity influencers who are building a following on Substack, and I could kind of see, I'm like, this is going to be something, and I'm curious about it. So it was again kind of that curiosity. And I am a writer by nature. Like I got a journalism degree. I started as a copywriter in content marketing, and then as my role has evolved, I don't write as much as I would like to. I'm writing emails and spreadsheets and PowerPoints versus, creative things. And so it was an opportunity for me to kind of get back into writing, have like, okay, I want to post once a week. It's going to force me to actually write something. And it's also going to help me kind of think through, my marketing side of things. So the newsletter too was just kind of me being like, I want to write more and I kind of want to experiment with this medium. I think this medium is going to be something new. We might, evolve into it. Who knows where it's going to go from like a marketing standpoint. Like Facebook and social media and Instagram all started as those things that I experimented with, and now they're, institutionalized in all the marketing strategies. Maybe not Facebook anymore, but you know what I mean? And so, yeah, it kind of came out of curiosity. And for me, like, I don't really have a goal. It's just kind of like, let's see where it goes, see what connections happen. I've gotten some good feedback. I've gotten some good connections where people comment or are in my DMs and are like, hey, I use this for, my marketing strategy, or that was a really great thing. Like that's helped me kind of identify things I was feeling as a marketer, and it helps resonate with me. And so like for me, that's kind of the goal where I'm like, okay, I'm like connecting with marketers, I'm helping other people, and it's helping me just kind of experiment. So
Yeah.
there's no real strategy behind it, honestly. It's just vibe marketing. It's vibe
Yeah,
marketing.
vibe marketing. It's gonna be a thing at the end of this
Yeah.
episode. And I think I relate to that so much. It's funny, I've mentioned this a couple of times on this podcast, but like I've heard there's something recently, and I've really been like kind of revisiting it. Is that creating content or putting stuff out there? It kind of gives you like asymmetric results. Like you just don't know what's going to come from it.
Yeah.
As long as you kind of do something that feels authentic, and just keep going and be willing to iterate. Like it'll change. I think something good always comes out of it. Like, I mean, I've been wanting to post more on LinkedIn for a long time because, I do want to like, obviously have the opportunity for people to be able to connect to me or, learn from me or vice versa. And honestly, it's like I get into these phases where I do a little bit of it and then
Yeah,
part of me is
same.
like, I don't know what to post. I'm like, and I think it's just leaning into that. And I think the reason why this podcast came, and I know we spoke about this before, was because I kind of started posting a bit more, and I made this really raw post about like, how I was feeling invisible as part of the business. And very similar to what you said, I got so many people reach out to me. Like I got so many lovely messages, and even on the comments and everything, like about how that really resonated with people. And for me, I was like, I did not realize this was such a big community of people who, and even people, who were very public in my opinion, but they were still kind of in certain ways feeling like their story wasn't being told or they weren't being able to do everything that they wanted to. So I completely aligned to that. And you never know, what it's going to change to. And even if you do it for a small period, you will definitely come out of learning something about it. You've been doing it for a little while now. Has there been any learnings that, you kind of things you've changed maybe, or like, because I know a lot of the audience would be people who probably are listening to this going, you know what, I want to build a brand or I want to like kind of talk about what I'm doing. Are there any learnings that you've found in the last little bit that you've been doing this for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cheesy, but it's true. It's just like, do it scared, like everybody, I think a lot of blockers for people is like, you see the success people, but you don't see the behind the scenes of how they built it. And so like, just put it out there, my coworker and friend, Lexi, she always talks about, she makes great content. She puts herself on video all the time. And she says, people always are like, how do you do that? And she's like, don't be afraid to be cringe.
Yeah.
Which I love. Like, you're going to be cringe on LinkedIn. One of these days, I'm going to be on that Reddit thread on LinkedIn of like LinkedIn cringe or whatever. I know it. I'll actually probably frame that if that happens. But it's like, it's okay. Like, you can just putting yourself out there is cringy. You're always going to have people who are like, not the most supportive and all this stuff. But as long as it feels authentic to you and you feel good, like, don't be afraid to try. There's so many blogs and things in my life that I've started and then just it doesn't stick and I kind of push it aside. But just keep trying, see what sticks. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's like, you've probably learned something from that and you can take that to the next thing. And you never know how it's going to, help you in the next level of your career or what you're doing or what you're building. Yeah, just like, it's going to be hard. It's going to feel unnatural, but like, it's a kind of like a skill to kind of like put out there of like, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to do a little scared. Like one thing I'm trying to do a little bit more of, well, obviously these podcasts, but like putting in for speaking sessions live on people, like that scares me insanely to do that kind of level of thing. But I'm like, I think that's the next kind of thing that I need to like stretch myself to.
Yeah.
It could be a complete failure. I might get booed off the stage. Who knows? But I'll try it.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you said that because that is something that, through this podcast, I think I've heard a few more people say similar things and I really align to it because I think putting yourself out there is such a scary thing, right? Like,
Yes.
and for all of us,
Terrifying.
like we all have like so many different things that we are good at, but there are other things that I'm not. And I think I've spoken about this previously as well, that I'm actually really scared about doing this podcast because I've been always behind the scenes and also
I'm
because,
so happy you're doing this podcast and putting yourself out here. I'm
yeah.
your biggest advocate for it.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, no, so I think it is scary. And, like I've been like, sometimes I've co-hosted stuff, but obviously we run two really popular podcasts as well. So it's kind of like, I have like, as you said about the imposter syndrome, because in my head, I'm like, I'm not a podcaster. I don't like do this all the time. Am I asking like, do I sound intelligent enough? Are my questions good? Like you go through this so many things, but then I was like, that's the whole point that I'm doing this because I want people, as you said, I want to lean into the cringe and be really scared, but it's about doing the reps. Like, the more we always say, like the more you do something, eventually, like just before you know it, sometimes things just get easier. You're like,
Yep.
I've done it enough times and, I've stumbled enough and, but now I know how to pick myself up and like walk from there as well. So
Yeah.
and I think it's great for people to hear it from people like you, who, you've been in leadership for a long time, you have a team, but we are still scared of doing things and it's okay to, sort of share that as well.
Yeah, and everyone is scared. I think that's the thing with imposter syndrome, and that's something that helped me. I have it still, but the thing is, everyone has it. Like everyone feels like an imposter, and I think if you don't, you're probably like a narcissist. So just remember that every single person has imposter syndrome and doesn't feel like, they belong where they belong or has doubts in themselves. And I think knowing that helps you like kind of, move past it. You're still going to feel that, sense in yourself. You're like, oh, I don't think I can do this, or I don't think I'm the right person to be doing X, Y, Z. But like people are people. You're going to make mistakes. You're not always going to be successful, but nobody is. And you're in the position you're in because of you. It's not because of luck. It is because of your hard work and your skills and your experience and who you are. And just keeping that in mind, I think helps you kind of overcome that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and there is no real perfection, even if you've been doing something for a very long time. Perfection just doesn't exist. So even for us, like we've like between the two podcasts, I think we've done 500 or 600 episodes now, and
Wow.
even now, like there's every time there's something or the other that doesn't work out, and that's fine. And I think initially, like, because I used to be very type A, like if it's not perfect, it's not going out in the world. And I think the reality of doing anything, like whether you're leading a team in a company or whether you're running a business, you can't have that mindset because things will never be 100%
Exactly.
perfect. Like, I mean, obviously, and I'm pretty sure for you as well, like in marketing and stuff, you want to put out something that's amazing and perfect, but like life happens. Like, you have to like work with that as well. So I'm really, really glad that, you kind of shared that because I do believe that people will get value from it. I know we spoke about like how like the industry is changing and a lot of people are doing amazing work and like sort of putting their stories out there, sharing their perspective. Are there people in the industry, or it doesn't have to be cybersecurity, can be tech or anything like that you see and you kind of go, I love what they're doing, or this is somewhere I draw inspiration from? Are there people that, you kind of look up to?
Yeah, I think, I was kind of trying to think of people I look up to in the same vein of people who are, making the work visible and putting themselves out there. There's a marketer, her name's MJ Smith, and I've been following her for a while. And what I liked is she always was just posting like real stuff. Like you just knew her posts were what she's actually building, what she's actually trying, what she's failed at. And it felt really authentic. And so she still, posts about it. She's a CMO now at, I think the company's called Collab. She doesn't post as much because obviously she's a CMO and she's busy. But like when she does post, it still, drives a lot of engagement. And it just feels, it's like nice to have insight into someone who is at a role that you're kind of aspiring to, or is in a leadership position where you're like, wow, like they're dealing with X, Y, Z. That's such a great way to kind of look at it. And I think because she posts like so authentically, it helped drive her leadership. She didn't have to fake being a thought leader. She really was. And even when she was, I think she was like a marketing manager when I first started following her. And for me, that's where I'm like, she's kind of like a leader and a thought leader that I would want to aspire to, where I'm like, she obviously is doing really great marketing that I appreciate. I like that she's sharing about it. She's obviously very smart at her role. And so like I want to like learn from her. But then she's also sharing things that are just very real and authentic to herself, it feels like. And for me, and she's not like pitching me her AI prompt library that you can download if you give me your email kind of stuff. So that's someone who just from like a similar kind of like marketing leader, if I was trying to aspire towards that, it'd be her.
Yeah, oh, amazing. Like we'll definitely give her a shout out in here. And it's good to hear because, there are so many people who are doing wonderful things. And really, I think I appreciate everyone who's putting themselves out there because they're really taking the time to like share what they've learned and mistakes and all of that
Yeah.
just so that someone else can learn from that and potentially, just fast track what they're doing a little bit or just have a different perspective. You just need to hear it from someone to give you that different perspective on life or, what
Yeah,
you're doing as well. Um,
exactly.
we do have a lot of people coming into the industry as well, like into cybersecurity. Obviously, the world has changed very much, and it's consistently changing, and I think even at a more rapid race now with AI and everything. For people who are coming into the industry now, do you have any advice for, like, what's a good way in cybersecurity to sort of, just get accustomed with, the lay of the land? And also, when is a good time to kind of, go down this path of where you start talking about what you're doing, sharing your learnings, or even finding the right medium? And I think that's probably a two-part question, like cybersecurity and building your brand. So feel free to take it whichever way you want.
I'll start with cybersecurity. So for me, it was following, podcasts like yourself. I feel like, the Cloud Security podcast was for me as a newbie, like a great opportunity to it was very approachable. It didn't talk down to me. And I felt like it helped me kind of speed up on stuff. So like find content that's digestible, like just immerse yourself in the content. There's a lot of different angles when it comes to cybersecurity, like we talked about. So like kind of find where that niche is. And then just like there's newsletters, there's Substacks, there's people on LinkedIn, there's podcasts, like just start following a bunch. And I think that's the best I can say. Like I like to see what other people were saying on it. I saw comments that people were talking about. I saw language that people were using, which helped me as a marketer kind of understand what to talk about. So like just really diving in if you're brand new to cybersecurity, that's the best way. And don't feel like, again, imposter syndrome. There's going to be people who are the most experts in all of this and using acronyms and words. I've never heard of the word Kubernetes in my life until I started in cybersecurity. Now it is my absolute favorite word to say because I think it's so fun.
It makes you
So
sound really smart, right?
right? I'm like, I don't know what a Kubernetes is, but I can say it. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I think there's different ways you can pronounce
Yeah.
it, but yeah, there's just words you didn't even know existed, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I am way over my head, but just immerse yourself. You'll see it. There's common themes and topics that tend to kind of go across, and there's just different levels of expertise that people can dive into it. But slowly you'll start seeing those topics, and you're like, all right, this is what people care about, or this is a problem that my audience is having, so I'm going to focus on this and bring in the expert who can talk about it, but you'll start to identify those. So yeah, shout out to you guys. If you guys aren't following them, that's the best way to learn about cloud security and AI security is follow the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Um, but I guess for the second part about brand, it kind of depends like what you want it to be. For me, it's a lot of, I like just connecting with people. I like, talking about marketing. I'm a big nerd, so I like to talk to people about marketing and leadership. And so that's what it is for me, where I'm like, I just want to share. I kind of want to connect. Sometimes what I post out there, I'm like, I don't know if this will resonate or not, but it's just me kind of like experimenting and putting myself out there. But if you have a goal of like, oh, I want to get this many followers, or maybe, I see people who like to put themselves out from a marketing perspective or a brand perspective on like TikTok. That I could never do that. Like, it's just not my jam to like be, you'll never see a selfie of me or anything like on LinkedIn. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But if that's kind of more your jam, you're not more of a writer, but you're more of like a speaker and you just want to do videos, like find the medium that kind of works for you and then just experiment with it and kind of don't beat yourself up. It's not going to be successful at first. It does take consistency. Like with anything, you have to be consistent with it is my number one recommendation. You don't just get magically viral. Some people do, but usually not. And just try it. And also if that's not your thing, like I think with marketing, it feels like you kind of have to be like a voice or have a brand in order to like be successful. I don't think that's the case either. Like only do it if you feel like that feels true to you. There's ways to be successful in marketing without, being a public figure or speaking out on LinkedIn. But networking and making those connections is probably a great way to do that behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm so glad you've called that because I think I definitely do want people to walk away from listening to this feeling that not everyone has to build a personal brand and we don't all have to, sort of start writing newsletters and podcasts and all of
Yeah.
that. I think it's just that whole notion of just advocating for yourself and celebrating that the work that you do, and that could be just in an internal meeting or in a Slack or somewhere. So I'm so glad you kind of like brought that to the highlight because I definitely don't want people to feel this pressure that, everyone has
No.
to kind of generate this because it is a lot of work. And depending
Yeah.
on the phase of your life, like you were mentioning MJ as well, like there's also going to be a chapter of your life where it feels appropriate to do. And we all have like different priorities and that's okay. Like we shouldn't have to, do everything as well. So we do want to be mindful that there shouldn't be this consistent pressure that everyone has to go out there and, start.
Yes, no. Yeah. There's other ways to, make yourself visible, especially as a marketer. Like I said the biggest career change for me that like accelerated my growth was doing more internal marketing. Internal market yourself. Like sometimes that's half the game is just making sure your leader knows about it, your team knows about it, use your one-on-ones appropriately and stuff. So there's definitely different ways you can make yourself visible and known. There's so many heads of, marketing CMOs that I'm friends with that don't post at all on LinkedIn. I don't even know if they have a LinkedIn. They have no kind of brand presence, but they're well known within their industry. They're well connected. They're well respected. So there's other ways to still kind of be a marketing leader, to put yourself out there without feeling like it's got to be LinkedIn, newsletter, podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. Also, I think the other thing that you said, your number one advice being consistency. I am like the biggest advocate for that because we get asked a lot about like, how do we start a podcast and stuff. And I always say,
Yep.
get started, keep going for 6 months. Doesn't matter if it's
Yes.
not perfect.
Without caring what the results are. Do it for 6 months.
Absolutely.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And it is hard. Consistency is so hard because sometimes it's so boring.
Yes.
It's
And you're like, what am I going to post about today? But
Yeah.
that's what you have to get through in order to like have a successful podcast.
Absolutely. And when you said that, I was like, you're absolutely just saying exactly, what I was thinking as well. And those are great pieces of advice over there. Nicole, you do so much like, for the industry, all the stuff that you put out. I love your newsletter. And I love the fact that you
thank
always
you.
put something fun in there as well. Like you had a Backstreet Boys
I
movie.
try.
All these little things. So I love that you put a bit of personality as well.
If anybody has ideas for another angle, please let me know. I'm running out of ideas.
No, your angle is great. But no, if I do think of something, but yeah, if anyone else has any ideas, please like feel free to message Nicole with ideas for your newsletter. And I'll plug all the details for your newsletter as well so that people can follow that. I do have three, not so, I've been saying fun questions, but I think I'll have to find.
This has all been fun.
Yeah. Yes, this has all been actually really fun. So just some questions to like really wrap up the interview. If you were talking to a younger self, Nicole, what would your advice to her would be, or what would you tell her?
Oh, gosh. I'd say it all works out. It's not going to work out how you think it is, but it all works out. And you're never going to imagine where your life will end up. So just roll with it.
Oh, wow. I love that. Yeah, I'm going to have that as a post-it now. Like it all works out. That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're in the thick of it, you kind of feel like, oh,
Yes.
it's never going to get resolved. But I always say, like in retrospect, life makes a lot more sense. But when you're
Yeah.
in it or when you're going through it, you're like, why am I going through this? So
Exactly.
yeah, it's short and sweet, but that hit it on the nail. Something that you're very grateful for today.
I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful, for the things like my health. Like, I feel like when someone's health is bad, it's just, you realize how much people take it for granted, I guess. So obviously always for that, but I'd say to not have the standard stuff of what you're grateful for. I'm grateful for the opportunities that, this role and this company kind of gives me. I feel like, I'm work from home. I'm able to travel a lot. I'm able to put myself out there as myself and a brand. I have a lot of room to like do what I want and build the team I want. So yeah, I'm just kind of grateful for the role that I'm in because it's allowed me to kind of build the life and the career that I've wanted. And so I know a lot of people look for that. And it's nice to kind of like, it's good to remind yourself in the hard days of work, when you're stressed or you're arguing with, someone about attribution, to remind yourself that like, the role itself is good. And so it's a good reminder of myself to also be grateful for the opportunities this role has provided me.
Absolutely. And the last question I have is something that you're looking forward to in your life.
Oh, good question. Honestly, just more travel. I know we kind of bonded over like our love of travel. I love to have a trip booked and all these things. And so like, the new year I've got more PTO and I'm like, ooh, what kind of trips can I go on? So yeah, I think, I just always love kind of exploring and finding new travel. So like, yeah, like, I think that's something I'm looking forward to. We're thinking of like Japan. We're thinking of like Australia, a big trip, something really putting myself out there. So I always love, if I'm not writing about marketing or talking about marketing, I'm thinking about travels, if you guys ever are wondering.
Yeah, oh well, like that's right up my alley. Like I absolutely like love the opportunity to be able to travel because I think it just opens your mind and just being able to experience and learn about all these cultures. And I think we live in a great time that traveling is so much more accessible than it used to be. Like back when our
Yes.
parents were growing up, it was just like everything was so much more expensive and language was such a barrier and there was no technology. So yeah, that's something that I can completely relate to. And yeah, whenever you do plan the Australia trip, you have to let me know because I'll have lots of tips for
Yes, I
you.
will need recommendations.
It's an amazing, amazing country. But Nicole, I can talk to you forever for this, and I'm sure we will
Same.
have to have you back on season 2 of the
Yes,
podcast
please.
as well, because I'm sure you would have done a lot more cool things by then as well. So we'll talk about all of that. But if people do want to reach out to you, what's the best way to go about it?
Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. My name's pretty simple. That's probably the best way to reach out to me. And I like talking to people. If people have questions or, you're starting out in your career and something resonated, like DM me. I love having those conversations and I truly mean it. So my DMs are open, I guess, on LinkedIn.
Specifically on like please
Yes.
don't join my
Yeah, nowhere else. Everything else is private.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for doing this. I'll definitely drop all your links on the show notes as well. But thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing so openly. I know people will walk away with a lot of things, that you've been through, and you've been so kind to share it all with us. But thank you so much.
Yeah,
And thanks
thank
everyone.
you. And oh, I just wanted to say thank you for putting this podcast together. I just wanted to say I'm so excited that you're like stepping into, your own visibility and building out this podcast. And I think it's well needed. And so like, well done. I'm like so excited for this series to roll out.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thanks for all your support. It means a lot. But thanks everyone for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that episode and you'll join us for the next one. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to The Visible, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to continue to listen to us every week, you can follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms. And if you would like to watch us on video, you can find us on YouTube as well. Join us every week as we continue to uncover more stories on how great ideas come to life. We will see you next week.